I remember when he proposed because I was so confused. I had no idea it was coming. Which is shocking because we've been together for so long and I feel like I just would have known.
Yeah.
But like I straight up hadn't showered in like 3 days. I was sick. I was high on like NyQuil. I had somehow planned my own engagement party because he had tricked me into this whole thing.
Yeah.
So we were like at the beach with all of our friends that I had planned, but he had tricked me into planning it on the back end.
Very smart of him.
So smart. I remember he gets down on one knee and I was like, what the fuck is happening? And then he pulled out a box, but your ring boxes are different. Are they still?
Yeah, I mean, we've changed ring boxes 100 times.
Well, 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
I don't even know what they were.
It was
Silver?
like thin and
like
a square.
Yeah.
But not like what you see.
Like the flip box.
Yeah. So then I was like, is he just giving me like a necklace or something? Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And then after I said yes and all that, I was like, you went to Stephanie Gottlieb? Like, how did you even know? But now, like, a few of my friends and my sisters.
Yeah.
So now it's like, I feel like we've been friends forever.
We have.
And I wore my necklace for you.
I love it.
My custom necklace that we made, and I don't know if I ever told you this. We made it for anyone listening. We made it for the wedding, but we were very specific because we wanted the front to be.
You wore it backwards.
I wore it backwards.
Yes.
But I was
that
like,
I remember.
I want to be able to wear it again.
Yep.
So we had to do it without a clasp.
Yep.
And
it had to get over your head.
Yes. I never thought about when I should put it over my head. And I should have done it, obviously, before hair and makeup. I got my hair and makeup done.
Did it ruin it?
I didn't ruin it. But I almost couldn't fit it over my head because my hair was like done.
Yeah.
And so Lucy and I and my sister Maddie are like trying to like scrape it down my face without breaking the necklace.
It stood the test.
It did. And now I still wear it. No, I love it so much. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I love that.
I'm so excited to have you. I want to start because we have so many questions about engagement rings, jewelry, staples, like that we should be investing in, where we can somewhat cut costs.
Yeah.
Not that we want to cut costs, but you know.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get involved in this industry? Because maybe now, because of social media, it seems more of a tangible career.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you started, there weren't really business owners also with such a large presence on social media and doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it was kind of the start of Instagram as a business platform in general. It was 2013 that I started my business. Yeah. But to rewind, my first job right out of college was for a diamond wholesaler on 47th Street.
The full experience.
It was the full 47th Street experience, and I didn't intend to land there. Mm-hmm. It was really a placeholder until I found my, quote unquote dream job that I was hunting for. And this fell in my lap. It was an introduction through a family friend. And I essentially learned A to Z about the wholesale world of jewelry from the perspective of 47th Street. And so that's really where my passion for diamonds came from. Mm-hmm. And this was, 2 generations of Israeli brothers and their father, and they treated me like family and just kind of gave me the full rundown of what it meant to grade a diamond, build a piece of jewelry, sell a piece of jewelry, market. I got to wear every hat in the business. Mm-hmm. And so as a first job, it was actually an amazing kind of Diamonds 101 intro into this world that I had really no previous knowledge of.
What did you study in college?
I studied communications.
So this was so random.
Yeah, I mean, of course, marketing is a huge piece of the business that I've built, but it certainly wasn't where I intended to be.
Right.
And I think, if I look back, I've always been someone who over-accessorizes and who mm-hmm. loves to story tell with my clothing, so it makes sense, but it definitely wasn't where I thought I would be.
Were you always into jewelry?
I was. If you look at pictures of me when I was a kid or a teenager, on Halloween I was wearing pumpkin earrings, and on Valentine's Day I had hearts, and so I've always been a thematic dresser, and jewelry was always a part of that. My mom was definitely big on accessories. I actually chipped my front tooth in high school making jewelry, so it's always been something I've done and loved. But nobody knows about diamonds until they know about diamonds.
Right.
And I didn't realize how much of an opportunity there was in that mm-hmm. space. And so when I was in this job my first job that I was supposed to be in for 2 months really was an internship. And then I loved what I was doing, and they offered me a full-time position. I ended up staying for 5 years.
Okay.
And I got to, again, like wear every hat, learn every piece of the business. And after that 5 years, it kind of just felt like it was time to do my own thing and have a little bit more creative freedom and flexibility in my schedule. And it was early in my life to take that leap, I think.
Yeah.
Especially only having one professional experience.
I feel you. We did a similar pipeline.
And I think that in hindsight, like, could I tell my younger self to take another job just to have that extra level of learning? I might have.
Yeah.
But of course, I've learned so much along the way about what it means to build a business and be a business owner and hire people and educate and mentor.
Right. I remember when I left, I was like, even if this is a failure, this will be like a crash course, like an MBA. I won't walk away with a degree,
right?
But you really are wearing so many different hats and you're forced to learn so many different things. When you left to start your own thing, what was the vision? Was there one? Like, was it ever, oh, I'm going to create this? Well, I guess what was it?
So when I left, there was definitely ego attached to it. It was like, I'm working too hard to not be making more money. They didn't want to give me what I had asked for, which in hindsight, I think they knew they made a huge mistake. And I still work with them and speak with my former boss all the time.
Yep.
So he would be the first to admit that. But I actually make them a lot more money now. So it's all good.
It worked for them.
It worked for everybody. But when I left, my intention was to find another job. And then as I started the search, I was realizing that the wholesale jewelry world is very much the same. It's like copy paste. It's just working for a different company. So I wasn't going to really be elevating my experience by going anywhere else unless I branched out into some other aspect of the industry. And at the time, all of my friends were starting to get engaged. People were coming to me asking for advice on engagement rings.
Right.
And so that's really where I started. And the intention was to just be this like concierge service and help people source and make whatever it is that they were looking for. So there was no collection plan. There was no, 5-year, this is what my business is going to look like. It was really it was how I was working with my clients already. I referred to them as privates in that business. Like a friend would come, I would sell her something from the collection that I was working with at that other company, or make her something custom or source a stone for her. And so I just was doing this on my own using the network of dealers and vendors that I had already worked with. And I was fortunate enough to leave on good terms with everybody, so there wasn't any conflict of interest there. But then Instagram happened to the business, and it was, at first just documenting the fun jewelry that I was finding, the trade shows I was going to, little moments in the business life. And slowly that gained traction and people were interested, and more people were asking questions and wanting to see the process. And, my word of mouth network became this bigger network of people who didn't know me, but were still willing to buy jewelry from me sight unseen. And so I never could have planned for that.
Which is kind of crazy for me I've done it, but to think of a consumer purchasing such large ticket items without going to a brick and mortar is something that we could have never imagined years ago.
This was 10 years ago. 12 years ago. People didn't do that.
Right.
And even buying jewelry online, it was pretty limited. Like, you weren't finding the level of education and access to information at that point in time. And the diamond industry is one of the most antiquated in retail. So even, I would say it took another 5 years for diamond pricing to be online.
Right.
So there was so much that people didn't know. And that's really where I saw the opportunity, was to be, first of all, a woman, speaking to women, because we are the ones wearing the jewelry for the most part. And if you walk down 47th Street, especially 10 years ago, it was all men, and most of them were over 60. So how could they possibly understand what a woman in her 20s wants?
I would go through that street, and
the
I'm
worst
like,
street
what
in
is
Manhattan,
happening?
aside from Canal.
Yes.
But it felt insane to me that that was the experience, especially when it came to bridal, that you would have to listen to someone who had no idea what you cared about, who frankly didn't even care to listen to what you wanted. They were just kind of pushing diamonds. I saw this opportunity to speak to women in a language that they would understand, that they would appreciate.
Yeah.
And that's really where the business began, was these one-off projects, all custom. And slowly I started building a small inventory of pieces that I was making for myself. And that really became the collection eventually.
Yeah.
But it's funny, even so in the last 2 years, I hired a brand president who was,
Right. I was listening to an interview about this.
yeah, so a longtime friend who has an incredible history in luxury. And, you know, when she came into the business and was like, well, where's the SKU plan? And what's the collection, you know, cadence? And I was like, what do you mean? We don't have a SKU plan, and I don't do collections. I just make pieces. She's like, that's great, but we can't build a business plan around that. So, I mean, that's fast forwarding a lot.
But as a consumer, I feel like you do. I mean, you have the slider bangle.
Yes.
And
which is a product.
Okay. Oh, you mean, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot has changed. I've learned a ton in the last 12 years, but this really all stemmed from wanting to speak to women, wanting the consumer to feel educated, and also wanting to help people find value. Because to your point, not everybody has, you know, dispensable income to be spending on jewelry all the time. And when they're making a jewelry purchase, it's a meaningful one for the most part. And so helping people find value in that purchase is one of the biggest roles that we play.
It must be so rewarding to be involved in such, more so for bridal, like such a huge moment.
Yeah.
And seeing that come to fruition. Like, I know when I went with you for Lucy's ring.
Yeah.
Like, that was so fun for me to go with Tyler and with my mom and her to try on rings first, but then with Tyler to actually pick it, and then obviously to see her excitement after. Like, that must be such a rewarding experience. Is bridal the largest part of your business, or what is, like, what, not percentage wise, but is that the main focus, or are the other products the main focus?
Bridal is where we started, and it was the main focus of the business, and it's certainly where I always have had the most fun. It's where I've been able to, you know, like you said, I get to meet the client and become an extended member of their family. I've worked with
all my sisters,
you know,
yeah,
the three of
my
you,
two sisters, yeah,
and learn a bit about their lives and all of the twists and turns that happen during the course of bridal planning. So that's definitely the most fun for me, but the fashion collection is really the volume in our business. But they speak to each other. I mean, really, for most people, the engagement ring is their first big jewelry purchase, and then they have a lifetime of jewelry purchase ahead of them.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, the goal, of course, is to build enough of a relationship with our clients that they trust us, that they know we have, you know, their best interests, and that we understand their aesthetic, and that they can come back to us for a push gift and birthdays and anniversaries, and really celebrate every milestone with us.
Yeah. Oh, I also have my push gift on. I forgot about
Yeah,
that one.
I mean,
well, it's my 30th birthday / push, but I love it.
I mean, and these are classic pieces that you'll have forever.
And I have my family ring that I had reset by you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, I do want to chat about engagement rings because a lot of my listeners are in that phase of life and people have a lot of questions. Right. I guess the first question is, do you recommend, or what process do you recommend someone doing when they know like an engagement is looming?
Yeah.
And they want to get an idea for A, their ring size, but B, what type of ring they want, what type of stone, what size, all of those things. Like, what process do you recommend?
So I would visit any local jewelry store that you can just walk into without an appointment and try things on. I think that's like one of the most fun parts of the experience is that try on and discovery, and B, like having the pressure off, not being in a situation where you feel like you need to make a decision because it's not normally something where you have that like aha moment, this is it. It might take time to take photos and look back at the photos and make that decision. I mean, most of our brides come in completely unclear on what they want until they see it and then sit on it and then see it again.
It's such a fun process.
It is, and it should be. And so go with a friend and make it a fun Saturday afternoon after brunch. And then when it does become more serious, for me, you know, Joe surprised you. My husband totally surprised me. So I think there is something really nice about that element of surprise, as long as he feels confident he knows what you want. I also don't think there's anything wrong with the couple going together and doing a little bit of shopping to because, you know, his preferences may be different than your preferences, and that could come down to budget or size or shape. And so I think getting on the same page about a lot of those things is important.
Yeah.
I would then feel comfortable to let my husband or boyfriend pick the stone for me once he knows my preferences. But honestly, a lot of our women want to be involved in that too, and I think that's okay. I mean,
Totally. I think that's changed over the years.
It absolutely
I feel like
has.
that
This
never
whole thing
was the
has
case.
changed.
Yeah.
I think she's leading the process, which
Right.
is great.
I think I loved, and maybe we did it similarly. Like I went with my mom and my two sisters to Tiffany because I was the first one to get engaged.
Yeah.
Well, we knew it was looming, and my mom like wanted that experience.
Yeah.
I didn't love Tiffany's because they weren't that nice to me, but that's whatever.
no.
But we tried on rings, and then I just knew what size I was. Like, okay,
Right.
I really
You have
like
the
a
basics.
round diamond,
Totally.
and I love the band if it was something along these lines. And then Lucy texted Joe and was like, when you're ready, I know what to do.
Right.
And then he went
So
to
it's
you.
nice to have an advocate, right?
Right.
A sister, a friend, a mom, whoever that can be, just to make sure that we're checking all the boxes.
Yes.
Because, like I said, most men, whether it's on 47th Street or the man who's going to pick out your ring, they might miss the little details.
And
like,
they're also
really,
not
there
going to be
are
the one
things
wearing it every day.
Exactly. There are things that women care about that men would overlook.
Right.
And so that really is my role to make sure those little details are checked off. But having a female advocate or a friend who really
Yes.
understands your preferences, doesn't have to be a woman, but someone who knows what you want, I think is important if you're not going to be in the room picking it out.
Absolutely. What are the 4 C's that are
So-
discussed when you're looking at these diamonds, when you're more in like the nitty gritty of picking the ring and diamond?
Right. Okay. So this refers to the quality of the diamond. So it's color, carat, clarity, and cut. So the two that we mostly focus on are color and clarity because those are the ones that you can really see. Carat is the obvious. That's the size of the stone, and that's really budget dependent. Color and clarity are where you can make compromises. So everybody has a different threshold for the quality that they prefer. Some people would be okay going down in quality to get a bigger size. Some people prefer higher quality, smaller size. So those are things that you would figure out with your partner. And I actually just heard another jewelry designer refer to the 5th C, which is character. And I thought that was really interesting because the truth is that with diamonds, beauty is really in the eye of the beholder. And so
Totally.
you might look at a stone and someone else looks at the same stone and it may appeal to you and not to them. And so the character of the diamond is almost the most important factor because it needs to resonate with you. If it's going to be on your hand every day and you're looking at it and it's supposed to be this, symbol of love and a relationship that's blossoming and changing in this new chapter for you, you want it to be something that really feels like you.
Absolutely. I mean, there are people who love their rings, and I'm like, great.
Right.
I would never
Not for
wear
me.
it. And I'm sure people feel the same way. I mean, mine's very
Exactly.
classic, but I'm sure someone feels that way about mine. I know I will speak to your process and the incredible products you make. Like, I get so many compliments on my ring,
I'm so
and people
glad.
being like, not that it's not big, it is, but I think because of the quality of the diamond, it looks so much bigger than the carat size it is.
Well, and
Like,
Joe cared about the quality.
cared-
and that
right,
was,
he cared more about the
that's
quality.
something we prioritize.
Yes, and you're gonna hate me for this. I never take it off, and I haven't
I know.
cleaned it. I know you get mad. I know.
You're not alone. So
I never take it off. I can't remember the last time I cleaned it, and it shines so freaking bright still. Where I catch myself sometimes, I'm like, whoa, like.
So, I mean, there's something to be
it's
said about a
gorgeous.
classic ring,
Yeah.
right? Like, it will appeal to so many people.
Mm.
And so I have a lot of brides who are concerned that their ring isn't original enough, and my best friend has that style.
Yeah.
But the truth is there's a reason that the classics are the classics.
That's what I was telling Lucy.
They last a lifetime. People will love them forever. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Agreed. Well, let's actually get into this because people were asking, what are some of the like timeless styles that you believe will never go out of fashion when it comes to engagement rings?
So your ring is one of them.
Thank you.
So there are classic shapes.
Yeah.
So you have a round. The emerald would be probably the second. And then there are classic settings. So pave, which is one of them, which is those small diamonds on the band.
And I have 4 prongs.
You have 4 prongs. You have cathedral settings. So there are different ways to do it. But in general, pave is one of the most popular settings. A classic solitaire, which is just, plain metal.
Yep.
A 3-stone ring, which is a little bit more traditional feeling. I would say those are like the 3 go-tos.
Okay.
And then there are variations on all of those different.
What are you seeing right now that's very like trendy? Not that it'll go out of style, but what's big for a trend? Or can you predict any trends?
Yeah, I mean, chunky gold has been trending for a while, and we've seen it seeping into bridal. So people are definitely,
I'm obsessed with
my
yours.
ring is pretty chunky.
I love it.
Thank you.
That was my favorite part about going to the store. I just tried on every ring when Lucy was trying them
It's
on.
fun. And I don't know if it's like the illusion of size or just that chunky gold is so much in fashion in your other jewelry categories. People are definitely swinging back to vintage. Like there's a huge resurgence in interest for vintage jewelry across the board, all different categories, but we're seeing it in the ring category specifically. So that goes as far as like actually antique settings and stones, but also antique inspired. So things like 3 stones and bezels, all of those design elements that you would
bezel
find.
that?
This is
that's button.
This is button.
What's bezel?
Bezel is just like the perimeter of metal around the stone.
Okay.
Which can feel really modern, but also kind of has some vintage ties to it. We're seeing a lot of that, and I think that's in response to the crazy prices of gold right now, what's going on with lab-grown and natural diamonds.
I want to get into that.
Oh, God. That's a whole podcast in itself. But the interest in vintage, I think the appeal is that it is unique and that it can't easily be replicated.
Right, and someone else doesn't have the reason I have the ring that I have is because I was at a bachelorette and someone was wearing this exact ring and I tried it on and I was like, oh, that's what I want.
Right.
Like it's very classic. And I get how some people wouldn't want that. Can we talk about natural versus lab diamonds and your thoughts as my diamond connoisseur?
I will try and keep this short and sweet.
Yes.
We don't sell anything lab grown.
Okay.
I am a huge proponent of natural diamonds and the value that they hold. For me, I fell in love with this industry and the romance and the story of natural diamonds, and that they are a miracle of nature. They take billions of years to be formed deep within the earth. Then they're unearthed by, amazing technology, and the infrastructure that's been built around that technology supports so many communities worldwide. And I was actually fortunate enough to visit Botswana last year. Was it last year? Yeah. And see a mine and see all of the people who are affected in positive ways with free healthcare and free schooling until their children are 13 and so many wonderful things that the natural diamond industry has provided for those communities. And so a lot of the conversation about, being eco-friendly and better for the environment and better for the communities and blood diamonds, a lot of it is just marketing. And so for me, it comes back to the romance of the story of the history of natural diamonds and owning a piece of that and investing in something that is not infinite. Truly lab-grown diamonds are made in a lab and can be produced in any quantity and will be. And from an economic standpoint, the price point has only plummeted since they were introduced, and I think it will just continue to do so. And so if you're investing in a relationship that you hope will last a lifetime, I think you should be investing with a product that lasts a lifetime.
What about outside of engagement rings? Does that change your opinion?
I see and acknowledge that there is a customer who is okay with the lower price point, for fashion jewelry.
Right. Like
and
I
even
said,
for bridal,
mine is lab grown.
There's a customer for everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
Clearly. It exists for a reason.
Birkin and Walmart Birkin.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
My Amazon dupe of the row bag that I have.
And we're living in a dupe culture, so I get it. I'm not knocking anybody who wants lab. I do think what's unfortunate is that it has really devalued natural diamonds and the perception of them. And I think there's a lot of confusion for the consumer. So that's the really unfortunate part for me being in this industry and kind of seeing how that's eroded. But it's not something I can get behind. When I'm selling a product, I want to feel like I can stand behind it. And that in 10 years, if you come back to me, I can still feel good about that. So for me, it's just a no.
Fair and valid. Are a lot of people coming to you with like family jewels or diamonds to potentially get reset?
That's always been a big category for us, both in bridal and fashion jewelry. I think, coming back to this vintage, when people actually have their own vintage jewelry, oftentimes they're inheriting it from their mother or their grandmother, and it may not speak to their style. And so there is this sentimental attachment to the stones and the materials that are used, but not necessarily the style. Or honestly, like maybe it just doesn't fit them.
Right.
So revamping it, as we refer to it, really just gives a piece new life and allows it to have space in your wardrobe. So that's one of the most fun parts for me because there's like no parameters. Like we can go as wild as we can imagine or the client will let us. And a candy button has actually been a really popular one for a revamp.
I could see that.
It's
Definitely.
just like it's an easy and it works with every shape and size and we cater the design to the stones. So it's fun.
I want to go back just for a second to the 4 C's. Is there one that you think, and I know obviously it depends so much for every case, but like where would you say people could best, I don't like the term cut corners, but like maybe save some money?
So for the most part, if we're looking at the brilliant cuts, which are everything except for the emerald and the Asher cut, those are step cuts. And the facet, that's referring to the faceting style. So a round is a brilliant cut diamond.
Okay.
So the way the facets were created is to hide the imperfections in the diamond.
Oh, right. I remember this one looking for Lucy's.
So clarity is the presence or absence of imperfections in a stone. That's usually the one place that you can cut corners. That's really hard to see with the naked eye. And so unless you care what it looks like under magnification, that's usually the first place that people will compromise.
Yep.
With the step cuts, the emerald and the Asher, it's a little bit easier to see imperfections because the way the stone is cut is sort of like a window into the stone, but there are still ways to get around it.
And what's the one that makes it, I guess it's color, right? Is color one of them?
Color
like the yellow to,
yes, the absence or presence of yellow in the stone.
Got it.
Correct.
I feel like I was revamped on this through Lucy's process because I remember being like, can we look back at mine and what I got?
Yes.
What about like redesigning your engagement ring?
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of that or do you see a
do.
lot of that? And what are some fun ways? Like let's take my ring for example.
Yep.
How would you think of taking a classic ring like this? Say you've been married for 10 years, maybe you're in a different financial situation and you're like, you know what, I want to change things up. What are some fun ways you guys are doing that?
So for a while, and still one of my favorite ways to do it is to add another stone. So to do a 2-stone, and that second stone could be another diamond shape. What I like about that, and this is what I did, is that like then you have 2 diamonds that you can then give one day, one to each of your kids. So I like that idea. If not, you could do the birthstone of your partner or your own birthstone. It gives it a totally different feel.
Are you putting that on the same band? I've seen some people have 2 separate bands.
It would be a completely new ring, but they would be together on
Stacked.
the same ring.
Okay.
Yes, not stacked, like connected.
Molded. Got it.
You could put your ring stone in a candy button. That would
Yeah.
also give it a very new life. 3 stones. I mean, usually if you're revamping, you want something that feels less bridal because you're in a different phase
older,
of life. So something chunkier, something more fashion forward. Maybe it's a coil or just something that feels a little bit more edgy and cocktail ring.
How many iterations of your ring have you had?
Oh, God. I mean, my first, let's talk about my I had a 2-carat heart-shaped pinky ring that
Wait.
that was like,
For what purpose?
I don't remember what I got that for. But that's the one I've revamped the most. So we're going to talk about that one.
What about
It
your
was a
actual
gift of
engagement ring?
My engagement ring stone,
You're like, I don't even know where that
I
is.
honestly don't know where it is.
Stephanie.
It's somewhere, though. And that's still
I
in its
can't.
original setting. It's
Okay.
a rose gold split shank. I left it, but I don't really wear it. That's the truth.
I mean, fair.
Instead of revamping that, I've just purchased other rings. Frankly, I'm in a position to do that.
Yeah, I
This
mean,
is my
that's like
business.
so valid and so fair of you.
So back to my heart, like that was a pinky ring. It became a solitaire necklace. It then became a split pair of studs, and now it's actually in this. Oh my God, I totally forgot. Now it's
Wait,
in
let me
this
see. I
high necklace that I made for myself last year. So
Okay.
I mean, it's had 4 different lives, and it felt so different in
Right.
every way. There's, I mean, endless
so much to do.
possibilities. It just depends on how you think you'll wear it. And some people don't even want a ring.
Right.
You know, maybe they have more active lifestyles. They don't ever wear it
Like
as a
Maddie
ring.
wanted an eternity band
Yeah.
as her engagement ring. 'cause
Yeah,
she
so
was like,
maybe
"This
you
just
wear it
feels
as
more
a
me."
solitaire pendant, and then
Yeah.
you never take it off, and you can kind of live in it.
Is there one engagement ring or like a handful that you remember or that really stick out that you're like, I absolutely love that and that was so unique?
Yeah, there are definitely a bunch. The funny thing is, I remember people's rings before I remember their names. Like, that's just how I operate. I'm not good at remembering people's names, but like, I'll
So
see
valid.
someone and be like, oh my God, you had a 2-carat oval on a yellow gold solitaire. And she's like, how do you remember that? I'm like, I don't remember your name, but I remember your ring.
Yeah.
And honestly, most of the time, I don't even get to meet the woman. I'm just meeting the guy picking out the ring. So to be fair, I never met
So
her.
fair. Yeah.
But rings I remember, I mean, I certainly remember the most expensive ring that
Well,
we've
that's what I
ever
was
made.
going to ask. Can you share that number?
So it was about $500,000. Yeah. And it was a beautiful, just super high quality 11-carat emerald cut. It was
11
stunning.
carats? But where do you wear that? Do they wear it?
Yeah, she wears it. And honestly, we've done a couple of rings at that price point, and the sizes have ranged from like 6 to 13 carats just because
Holy
of
shit.
quality.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the 6-carat was obviously extremely high quality at that
Right.
price point. So I haven't sold anything
11
over that
carats
price.
is crazy. I have a friend that I think is like 5, and I remember trying it on and being like, my hand is at the floor.
You know,
like,
I think in this
I think some people can wear
world,
it. I mean, 11.
It's
Wow,
it's a
that's
tricky
lot.
thing to wear everywhere. Like, you're going
Yeah.
to specific places in an 11-carat diamond,
Yeah.
especially in this
I
day
would
and
think
age.
so. Okay, well, actually, someone asked this, and I've always wondered this. When you travel with all of your jewels, do you have like security? Like
I
what?
can't tell you that.
Oh, you can. You're like, bitch, please.
Just don't worry about me, okay? I
Okay.
don't advise anybody to bring that much jewelry anywhere unless they know exactly what they're doing.
Okay. But
I've-
it's part of your business.
It's part of my business. I have a way about it, and I'm not traveling to like busy cities with high crime rates when I'm
Okay.
doing that. So that's also something to keep in mind. Like, I went to South America a couple of years ago and didn't bring a single piece of
Right.
jewelry except like a teeny tiny stack band.
Actually, that like makes me wonder, do you ever have brides, because I've seen people do this, who will, I know you wouldn't be the one making it, but who are replicating?
I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it
I
either.
don't understand. If you're worried about getting robbed,
Right.
then don't wear a ring, because
Because
if it
then you're
looks
gonna
like the
draw
real
the
thing,
attention
like,
anyway.
they don't care if it's plastic or diamond, they're coming for it.
Right.
And if you just don't want to lose it, then leave it at home.
I've heard of people doing this, and it really boggles my mind.
I just don't get
Honestly,
it.
it's the same thing I feel about like the plastic band for men to wear to like
Yeah,
play sports
like,
in the
just
gym.
don't wear
We're good here. if like that's the concern,
Right.
No.
Wear it to the bar, but like the gym,
well,
it's
like
okay.
just wear your ring or don't. It's honestly interesting. So many of my male friends do not wear their wedding
Really?
rings, and I
have a bunch who don't either.
love them to death. I don't think there's an ounce of infidelity happening. That's not why. But like, it blows my mind. And then I think I was trying to remember if my dad ever wore his, because I remember he broke his finger once and like couldn't get it back on.
Speaking of breaking fingers,
Oh my God, Joe. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Broke his freaking wedding ring finger the night of our
At your
wedding.
wedding.
Yeah, dancing at our after party, slipped. His finger starts swelling. Did I ever send you that picture?
Yeah, it was like
and I'm like,
huge and
we need to
purple.
take off your ring like now, otherwise we're gonna have to cut it off one
Yep.
day. It all ended up fine, but he did have to wear a freaking like stint on our honeymoon in Hawaii, and I was
Yeah.
like, you are embarrassing me. But I've never understood. I mean, I'm just someone that never takes off my jewelry.
I never really look for that. I mean, I
I
wouldn't be
never
looking, but
But I will say, I've never been hit on more in my entire life than when I got engaged.
interesting.
I never used to get hit on. I remember exactly this, like right after getting engaged, being at bars and getting hit on all the time. And I think it was because of this thing that like maybe guys knew that it was just like
it wasn't going to happen.
it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So it was like, oh, or I don't know if it's the one, what you can't have. But it was fascinating to me.
I don't go to bars ever.
Well, I mean, I don't anymore. This is
Never
when I
did.
was 26. I was a child bride, in my opinion. What do you think are like staple jewelry items for the like pre-engaged and then maybe the anniversary and then a push present
Okay.
that you're
So,
recommending?
I would say there's like different phases in your jewelry life cycle.
Yeah.
So when you're first building your jewelry wardrobe, you want to think about the staples. So things like a pave huggy or a diamond stud, a tennis bracelet. And there's different price points, you know, entry level
Right.
and up, depending on what your situation is. And maybe it's a gift from a parent or whatnot. But I think focusing on staples in different categories, having a great everyday earring, necklace,
Yeah.
bracelet. I would say rings for me were always kind of last priority because
They get banged around the most also.
they do. And I think like, I don't know, maybe for me, I just really loved cocktail rings always. So I was always just wearing costume until I started investing in fine jewelry. And then I think that second phase is, okay, now you have your elementary basics and now you can start working on the layering pieces. So you want to have a really nice evening necklace. And frankly, because of the way the world has moved, evening isn't really a category
Right.
anymore. So having a necklace that looks great every day that can double as an evening necklace, the
Yeah.
tennis necklace has become like an everyday staple for most women.
Which is so
Who
crazy.
can.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you upsize those studs. Maybe you invest in something like a slider bangle that can be built over time. I think just sort of starting to level up.
Yeah.
And it is always nice to have something that you can be adding on to over time, whether that's a charm necklace or something like the slider where you can be adding charms to it with every milestone, birthday, anniversary, etc.
I actually just found my original charm bracelet from a kid.
Really?
My mom just found it in her safe. And
I mean,
was so
charms
excited.
are coming back. Like
I know. I actually have
more
like a
necklaces
different one
than
on.
bracelets.
Yeah.
But people are definitely wearing a ton of layered charms.
Ton.
So I think that's like an easy thing. You know, if you're wearing it every day and then just kind of adding year after year, that's nice and it's evolving with you.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you get to the stage of engagement and becoming a first-time mom potentially. And so now you're starting to think about personalization.
Yeah. What's your
and-
most common push present that you're seeing?
So, I mean, the slider bangle has always been really popular
Yeah.
for us because it can evolve with you. It can start with one child's name, and then you can add a second child's name or initials or birthstones. We do a ton of different letterings. We have our bubble necklace that's been
Yeah.
very popular. I designed that when my daughter Goldie was born.
I love
now
that one.
it's like almost 5 years. And we've introduced recently some newer, kind of more classic lettering too. So anything with letters, birthstones, initials is always really popular in that
Yeah.
category. And then I think, you know, once you get to the self-purchasing phase, that's obviously a really fun time.
So fun.
And that's when you're thinking about like styling.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily about like, oh, I need this. It's okay, I have this and now I want to be wearing something specific with this type of outfit. So I want a going out earring for dinners, or I want a layering piece that can make it feel a little bit dressier, or I have this pendant but I want a cooler chain for it. Like that's what I think, like once you get to your 30s plus and you've established your own, you know, purchasing cadence and you start prioritizing jewelry as a category, that's when you can start having fun with styling.
How often are you changing up your jewelry? Because I feel like it's all the time.
I feel like I have like, I'll go like 6 months and have like a set of kind of 10 pieces that I'm rotating in different categories. Like I've been wearing these earrings probably
those
for the
earrings.
last 3 months or so, and I'll just kind of keep them in
Yeah.
rotation. But I always have like a hoop, a stud, and a huggy that I'm rotating in and out depending on where
Yeah.
I'm going. And then maybe like a nice dinner earring or something
I know.
cooler.
It's something that I want. I mean, I like never take off. I took off my one long necklace and I put on the wedding one because I was like, I want to do this for Stephanie. But I
you.
do want to be better at rotating and not wearing the same things. But I just get so lazy.
Yeah. Well,
The
that's
act of
why I
taking
think
certain
like
things on and off.
In this phase of life, if you have the means to have the
Mm-hmm.
rotation, then I think you can think about different moments that you would wear jewelry.
Right.
So, okay, you have your everyday, you're working, like you don't really want anything chunky that's going to get in your way.
Right.
You have your weekend, you're probably not wearing much with your kids, but then what are you wearing out to dinner with your friends? And what are
Yeah.
you wearing if
It
you go
requires
to a
me
wedding?
to socialize more and go
Okay.
to more weddings.
Well, maybe that should be part of it is, okay.
No, I know. I need to, yes.
You know, encourage. I always feel like the wardrobe like should match the
Agreed.
destination, and so the jewelry should be a part of that.
It's weddings. I catch myself being like, "Oh, I wear
don't
these
have a
every
big-
day.
right.
Like, I want to up level. I mean, I feel the same way with my makeup. When I go to do makeup for a
Yep.
wedding, I'm like, this is the same makeup I'm doing.
Yeah, and
I want to up level it.
I think we don't even like. Most people don't prioritize having something for that moment because
Right.
maybe it's only 3 or 4 times a year. But if you think about over your lifetime, that 3 or 4 times a year, you'll have an opportunity
Totally.
to wear something like that. It is a worthy investment.
And it can be the same thing every single time.
And you can't, like, if you just keep buying everyday things, you won't be wearing all the things you already had.
That's where I'm catching myself.
Right.
My dad is a big like jewelry gift giver, which
Yeah.
love
Great.
that for us. But it's a lot of what we've gotten of like very nice everyday staples. And I'm like, I can only layer. So it's
Right.
such a
How many necklaces
freaking
can you
ridiculous
wear?
problem to have. But I do want to start thinking about more like investment wedding style or like dressier pieces.
And
that
even
I'm
if that means not buying
bringing
as
in.
often
totally.
or, you know, I think that, like, focusing on filling a category at a
Yeah.
time is a good way to do it.
Outside of bridal, what is the most expensive piece that you've sold? Can you share that? Do you know that? Or would it be the bridal?
It's in that same price point ballpark.
Okay.
We've done some tennis necklaces in that price point. We've done some diamond studs in that price point. They're all classics.
How big are those studs at that price?
Big?
Big.
It
Big
depends.
kahunas.
I mean, it depends on the quality.
Wow.
But
What was it like entering the like celebrity jewelry territory? Like how did you enter that world? Was it Instagram?
yeah, it was pretty much through Instagram. That, I mean, for the first 8 years of the business, that was the only marketing I did. So anyone who found me was finding me through word of mouth or Instagram. The first time I sold to a celebrity was on my website, no communication from anybody,
Oh,
and
really?
they just clicked and bought.
And you just saw the name pop
And I
in?
saw the name, and then I like did a little Googling
Yeah.
and, you know, a little creep finding. And that's happened a couple of times. We have a couple really good repeat purchasers who like don't reach out to me, and so I don't, you know,
Right.
want to breach
have
their
fun.
confidentiality, and I don't reach out to them. I just let it be. And then we have people who I communicate with through Instagram and have built that type
Yep.
of relationship with. And, you know, the housewives are definitely in that
Yeah.
roster. A couple of them, like Bethany and Kyle, wear the slider bangle. I think one of the cooler ones was like very early in my career. Alanis Morissette
Really?
bought, I made these like individual colored stone heart-shaped bezel necklaces. There
Yeah.
were like 10 of them. And in my pictures, I wear everything together in a way that like no normal person would wear, but it's fun for Instagram. And so I was wearing these 10 necklaces together, and she bought all of them.
I love that.
It's just like what?
What is life?
Yeah,
Especially
so-
for like our generation.
Yeah,
That's
and
like
especially
iconic.
when I mean, I was so early on in,
Yeah.
in this business, and to see that name come into my
Right.
inbox was just wild.
What was it like for the aftermath of the like Taylor Swift 87 necklace? Because that was everywhere. I remember
Yeah.
texting or messaging you being like, holy shit,
I
Stephanie.
know. That was I mean, that's obviously a highlight of my
Right.
career. And that was kind of this new phase of celebrity, which is through PR.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
a lot of the early days were completely organic. And now it's, you know, my PR team has their relationships and they're communicating with stylists all the time. And we have ideas that we're pitching to PR to say, okay, we want to work with so-and-so and here's an idea for a piece of jewelry. And that's what happened in that case. My president is a huge Chiefs fan. And so she was watching the games like last December and texted me on a Sunday night and was like, if you want to do your varsity lettering, because I had this in my plan to launch it later in the year, she's like, we need to do it now and you need to make one for Taylor and send it to her.
Yep.
So that was like a late December Sunday night text. And the next morning PR was on it. And then by mid-January, I had the necklace made for her with like hopes that she would like it.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you never know.
We didn't know, and we're not communicating with Taylor. And so her stylist said, send it, and I think she'll like it, but I can't make any promises. So we did. And she was traveling, I guess, from Japan. She had like the last performance before the Super Bowl. So she had no time to even pre-plan her outfit. So we had no idea. And then at 2 p.m. the day of the Super Bowl, I see like a blurry screen grab from TV of her walking through the tunnel wearing the necklace. And it was just like the most wild,
I'm sure, flurry of things.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. I mean, talk about like someone who has the most influential power
and it
over
was
things.
Just like the most highly,
I mean, it was like
televised moment
that was very
of the
peak.
year. So, and that picture replayed for the entire year. I think it was one of like the top 10 time images of 2024.
That's amazing.
It was just wild.
But like, you could have never fathomed that when you started.
I couldn't have planned it.
Never. I mean, but that's the whole thing with having your own business, or especially creating your own product, of trying to get it in as many people's hands as possible and just being like, you never freaking know. Not at all equatable or the same. But with my journal, I like always have it with me because I want to give it at different price points. I can hand them out. And I gave one to Martha Stewart, and I was kind of like, I thought she was going to be like, no, because she's Martha. She's Martha. She was iconic in the event. They were like, I hope you like what we set up. Like, I hope it's up to Martha's standards. And she just was like this. And so I thought she was going to be like, no. And she took it and like was posing for pictures with it and walked out of the event holding it. And I'm like, you never know who, one day maybe she posts it. One day maybe someone's at her house and they see it. Just getting it in people's hands and trusting the universe.
Yeah. I will say the one thing we saw from that, I mean, there were many amazing things that happened after, but London is now in my top 10 cities.
Interesting.
And it never was before. And so I think having an international celebrity with that type of reach, like that's a tangible change that I can measure.
Right.
And most of them, you know, I see sales, of course I can measure that, and increased traffic you can measure, but after a while that tapers, but this is something that's stayed. And
that's so interesting.
I thought that was a really amazing takeaway.
Totally.
Was that like now we've been introduced to an international audience.
Right, because are you primarily New York and then US?
It's mostly North America, East Coast dominant for sure, and then like the other big cities.
Right. That's such a great takeaway.
Yeah.
Are you willing to provide commentary on 2 big engagements recently on the rings?
Let's talk about it.
Okay, Selena.
So I actually did talk about this the other day.
I thought you were going to say I actually did this.
No,
right.
I wish. No, my feedback was marquise are coming back.
Is that the style?
The cut. That's the diamond cut she has. My personal take is that the band is too thick. I think the diamond would look more impressive if it was on a thinner band. And that's just my personal aesthetic. Like, I like a thin band with the diamond really being the star on top.
Okay, so what's it called?
Marquee.
Marquee.
And that's definitely a nod to antique. Like there's
you can see.
Yeah.
I feel like this is too. Maybe I'm wrong, but what about Zendaya?
So I love this ring.
Also, was this confirmed that they're even engaged, or am I
don't know that I mean, I said it was confirmed because someone on my team told me it was confirmed.
I mean, everything online says it's as if it's confirmed.
I'm pretty sure
so we're going with it.
From what I've heard, it's a Jessica McCormick button back ring, which is, it's again very antique style. I love that she turned it east-west. It makes it a little bit edgier.
I've never seen anything like that.
It's cool. It looks like an antique cushion. I like that it's sideways. It's more interesting. I like the yellow gold with the platinum prongs. Like it's classic and still cool.
Big.
Yeah, it's probably like 5-6 carats.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was so fun.
Thanks for
and
having
also
me.
educational. Where can people get your products and support you?
You can visit us on stephaniegottlieb.com, Instagram at Stephanie Gottlieb, and check out our showroom in Manhattan.
It's literally my favorite place.
And we just upgraded it. We just
It's
redid
so
it,
nice.
and I finally have a logo on the wall.
Oh, you do?
I do. So come visit us.
It's so fun. I remember like when we were trying on Lucy's rings, I was just bopping around trying on everything. And she looked at me at one point and was like, "This is my appointment. Chill the fuck out." I'm like, well, who knows? Maybe I'm getting a new engagement
Gotta
ring.
love it, sisters.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.